WBNE.
Hello and welcome to episode 91, all about The Hobbit, Chapter 5, Riddles in the Dark, being the 91st part of That's What I'm Tolkien About. Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, just call me MC. And today I'm joined by Sequoia Simone and Kim Harris of Fanatical Fics. I almost said fantastic. Fanatical Fics and where to find them. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you guys for joining me. When I found your podcast, I just love the energy and the dynamics of it. So it's just so wonderful. Would you guys like to tell me and the listeners what your history or experience is with Lord of the Rings and or The Hobbit?
Yeah, I mean, I read the Lord of the Rings trilogy when I was in high school. I really, really loved it. I did put down the third volume about halfway through and I was like, oh my gosh, are we still going to Mordor? And did that for a couple of weeks to have some distance. But I loved them a lot. I love the movies. And I do believe at least one of the movies had come out before I started reading the books. So I was a movies into the books person on the Lord of the Rings. But I had seen as a smaller child the cartoon version of The Hobbit. And I didn't read it until after I read Lord of the Rings. And now I've read The Hobbit 3 times. I haven't gone back to the Lord of the Rings books because they're a little bit hefty.
Oh my gosh. That's an understatement, you know?
Yeah. And I really do love the universe a lot. And the new Hobbit movies are terrible, and I've only seen one of them.
Yeah,
so
I've heard that.
They are pretty bad, yeah. The cartoons, are those the rotoscoped ones with the terrifying ring wraiths?
Yeah.
Man, they are so scary.
I am so excited to watch those because I will be covering them once I finish The Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so excited for them because they just look totally insane and out of this world.
Totally bizarre, yeah, for sure. I definitely watched the movies. I watched those movies. They came out when we were in junior high because I watched the movies first and was like, these are so cool. And then I tried to read the books and I was 13 and I could not I gave up about halfway through Two Towers because I was like, I can't deal with these songs.
The songs, it's all relatable. I totally understand.
So I dropped Two Towers and I actually never picked the Lord of the Rings books up again, but I read The Hobbit a ton. I think my dad read it to me when I was really little. The copy I picked up to do the reading for this prep actually has a bookmark with his handwriting on it, so I was like, oh, nice.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah, I feel like you guys you're coming in with this energy of well, I watched the movies first and then tried reading the book. That's 5,000% the normal thing for with this book to movie adaptation world culture. Everyone always feels the need to be I read the book first. Lord of the Rings is the one exception.
yeah.
And I have a lot of people be well, I did watch the movies first and then I read them. And I'm that is the normal thing to do, I think.
We were also pretty young when the movies came out. The books were too dense for me at that point in time, I think.
I mean, I read them when I was, 25 and I was still oh my God, they're still walking out of the Shire.
Just really don't care about the etymological derivation of this hill's name, Tolkien, please. But The Hobbit's way different, I think. The Hobbit is definitively a children's book.
100%. I'm coming to realize a lot more as I get further into it. I was coming into it with this expectation that it was going to be kind of a Disney fairy tale, but it's in some aspects it's more like a Grimm Brothers fairy tale where there are a lot of darker things to it that aren't as quote unquote kid friendly. These things that when we look back on a lot of our childhood movies or whatever, especially just in the 90s and just the further you get back, it's a totally different thing of what was appropriate for children. You know? As opposed to nowadays. It's just like a totally different tone with kids media and books and everything. But yeah, it's so much easier to read. I made fun of a lot. I think it was in chapter 2. They leave the Shire in the span of like 2 sentences.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're just gone. We don't.
And Lord of the Rings is like, 100 pages in, we're still in the Shire. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this chapter is super exciting and fun. This is chapter 5, Riddles in the Dark. I had a feeling that Gollum was going to make an appearance in it. Mm-hmm. I was correct. Just because I knew from reading Lord of the Rings and the background about how Bilbo got the ring, I know that it had something to do with riddles, and I was like, mayhaps this is Gollum's appearance.
I was super excited when you emailed us which chapter we were going to be doing. I was like, this is one of the iconic chapters from this book, I would say.
Absolutely.
When I think about this book, this is one of the chapters I think about.
Yeah, for sure. So it opens up with Bilbo coming to after they've had this like attack from the goblins, and like poor Bilbo has just been like left, like literally like left in the dark.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I felt so bad for him reading this. I was like, this is terrifying.
Yeah. He was just like forgotten. And it's like, I don't know if it was I think it's more of an instance of like in the dark, he's so small that they probably didn't even notice he was like lying there and they just like left him or whatever. But like this idea of waking up and being like, did they forget me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. And like in a cave. I think it's just so scary, like that total darkness that you get in caves. And
it opens up, the chapter opens up in like such a, it's still kind of like wholesome and fun, but then you sort of have to remember that also simultaneously he is like in the pitch black, cannot see anything, and a goblin might show up and just like slit his throat at any given point in time.
Any second.
But, you know, he's just like, okay, what's going on here? Oh, this is not great. Where's my pipe? You know? Like,
just like trying to breathe and collect himself. And he's like doing these, don't light your pipe. What are you doing? But I totally see why. He's so shaken.
Yeah, it's scary.
Bilbo's a great protagonist. I just like him so much. I really identify with him.
Yeah, I'm finding a lot that he's, for like a lot of people, he's a very, especially like in the days of like quarantine and like self, you know, social isolation and stuff, of being like, I'm gonna stay home. I'm good, thanks. You know, like
he's trying so hard.
I think Bilbo is going to be all of us once we're in a post, you know, everyone's vaccinated world where you're gonna leave your house and be like, all right, time to go to the bars, time to go shopping, this is so exciting, and then you get there and you're gonna be like, this is terrible, I want to go home.
Like to go home.
I had forgotten.
Put the kettle on.
Yeah. This is awful. What was I even thinking?
I thought I wanted an adventure, and then I was in this dark bar, and it was terrible.
Yeah, awful. So as Bilbo's groping around in this tunnel trying to find his way, he happens upon a certain object. So interesting.
So incredibly unlikely.
It says, he guessed as well as he could and crawled along for a good way till suddenly his hand met with what felt like a tiny ring of cold metal lying on the floor of the tunnel. It was a turning point in his career, but he did not know it.
Yeah.
What a iconic thing. Also, what I would give for a narrator to say that about my life, about like, this was a turning point in her career, though she didn't know it. You know? That would be nice to have that like hindsight. But yeah, so I'm like, really, you happen to find the one ring in the middle of a dark tunnel.
Right.
Really?
When you actually can't see anything.
Yeah, you're just feeling around on the ground.
This tiny
it could just
ring.
as easily have been a cold rock, a cold round rock. But
exactly.
I think the point is that the ring wants to be found.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I've heard a lot of people say, is that like when the ring wants to be found, it will be found.
Yes.
So even though it seems incredibly unlikely.
Yeah. And like I'll talk more about that later in this chapter too, but just like I don't exactly believe that it would just be lying in the middle of this cave. Like, I think Gollum would have noticed it being gone, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But just man, just what are the odds?
What are the
The ring's
odds?
making some
What are the
moves. It's got
odds?
some little
Yeah.
ring plans, some big ring plans. It's got
big
huge ring plans.
Huge plans.
Yeah. So Bilbo is like very heartbroken. He's like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, at least I have my pipe. That's good. Oh, at least I have my weed. That's good. And then he's like, I don't have any matches. Life is a disaster and we're all going to die. And there's no point to anything.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I completely relate to that. Just having like one thing go wrong and being like, that's it. Life is fleeting and meaningless.
We're done.
Yeah.
I think I would have just laid down on the ground and given up at that point.
Yeah.
Like, this. Let the
well,
goblins take me. I'm done.
I guess I die here.
Yeah.
This is where I die. Mhm.
I like that he looked for the matches in relation to his pipe, but not in relation to his existence in a dark space.
That is true.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That he was like, let me see if I can find some matches to
I
light
have
my pipe.
matches.
Not like, let me see if I can find some matches
to light my way in the dark tunnel.
see my way in the dark. Yeah, yeah. It does say that later on he's like, well, that's probably for the best because otherwise the goblins would be able to come and find me and follow the light or follow the smoke.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so funny. I didn't even think about that. He pulls out his sword. I can't remember. I don't think at this point he has named it Sting.
No.
But this is Sting, and so it's like glowing a little bit. So he's like kind of using this, and he's like, well, I guess I'll just have to like walk in some direction.
Yeah.
And we'll see where that gets me.
What else is there to be
did
done?
Notice
Yeah.
the text says that he's been hiding his sword in his pants, and that's why the goblins didn't take it.
Yeah.
Which seems like, how were you were doing what?
Is that a sword in your pocket, or are you just happy to see? It's like,
Because
well,
when we've seen Sting, it's not like a little knife.
like a
It's a
knife.
sword for hobbits.
yeah, for hobbits. Mhm.
Must be some very large pants, I guess. He's
I
wearing,
don't
like,
know.
hammer
See,
pants.
here's the thing. I don't question a lot of the logic in The Hobbit because I keep reminding myself that, like, it's a kid's story. You know, Tolkien was, like, telling this story to his kid at bedtime. And so his kid probably wasn't being like, hang on, how does a sword fit inside a pocket or inside someone's pants?
Yeah, hammer pants. Yeah, easy.
Bilbo is now wearing hammer pants. Excellent.
I will say though, Tolkien has done this a couple times so far in The Hobbit where like after the fact he'll bring in something that is like, wow, that's super convenient. And this is one of those instances where it's like Bilbo was lucky enough to have hidden his sword when the goblins were searching them. And so he, that's why it wasn't taken. So yeah, there's like a lot of, convenient things happening like along the way that like Tolkien kind of like stumbles upon and being like, oh, I think Bilbo
just
needs to have his sword.
Yeah.
Let me write that in here, like why he has his sword at this point.
For the plot.
Rather than going back in the previous chapter and writing in a section that was like, Bilbo put his sword in his pants.
Bilbo always keeps his sword in his pants.
Yeah.
For reasons.
So he uses like this tiny little glimmer from the sword and he like stumbles his way through the darkness and just like walks wherever he thinks he's gonna go. I do like this one note that kind of sheds like a lot more light on hobbits in being like, because I don't know, coming from the Lord of the Rings, I'm thinking of Merry and Pippin as like stereotypical hobbits. And I've made like a lot of like memes and jokes about them of how like they're just there a lot of the times and they're just like high or drunk and they're just there to have a good time, But Tolkien does say, he says, also they can move very quietly and hide easily and recover wonderfully from falls and bruises. I think that note is important because I think that actually sheds a lot of light specifically on Merry and Pippin because like they do go through a lot. but the fact that like they recover quickly. And they have a fund of wisdom and wise sayings that men have mostly never heard or have forgotten long ago. So I like this little extra tidbit we get about hobbits being like a lot more useful creatures than is in my mindset right now.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how the wise old phrases are going to come into help him. Well, at that point, you're not entirely sure what wise old phrases are going to help him in this dark cave. You're like, okay, why? Mm-hmm. Why do I need to know this information? And you do need to know it pretty immediately after this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Then he reaches like a pool of water of some kind. He's not sure if it's actually no, he does use some like observational skills, which like good job, Bilbo. He's like, well, I don't hear running water, so I think it's a pool or a lake of some kind. And Tolkien does this like full paragraph talking about like the darkness of water and strange things that live in the water and fish that have creepy eyes, and I'm just like, okay, Tolkien is team, because so would you rather question I ask people a lot is, would you rather go to space or the bottom of the ocean? And I'm like, no, I want nothing to do with the bottom of the ocean.
Nothing to do with
that is where like Satan's creatures live. I do not want to see the deep ocean at all. That is more terrifying to me than space.
That was a really gross section and really scary. I was like, this is really effectively terrifying and disgusting me right now. Hate this.
Yep. And like as he was describing these like slimy, dark creatures that live in the water, I was like, okay, I'm getting like really anxious for Gollum to show up.
Right.
And then like literally the next paragraph.
Here's another gross, slimy thing.
Yeah. It says, deep down here by the dark water lived old Gollum, a small, slimy creature. I don't know where he came from, nor who or what he was. Meanwhile, like flash forward like 20 years when Tolkien's writing The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that the narrator's saying they don't know what Gollum's deal is here.
Yeah.
I think at this point,
what are they talking about?
It's hard because in The Lord of the Rings, we learn that The Hobbit was technically written by Bilbo.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that Bilbo wouldn't know like how Gollum got there or like who he is or like what he is. But it's also confusing because
we get some of his background like in 2 paragraphs from here where they're like, the narrator's like, I don't know what his deal is, but here's also what his deal is.
And then there's also this like fourth wall breaking where like the narrator will be like, I and you. But if it's Bilbo like writing about his own story, you know, it's just like kind of confusing. Because I think at this point when the book was being written, it was just, you know, Tolkien is the person writing The Hobbit. I don't know if he necessarily thought of like this idea of Bilbo writing The Hobbit.
Right.
But yeah, Tolkien was like, you know what? I think I'm going to expand upon this Gollum character.
This yucky dude.
In a couple years, maybe. So it says, he was Gollum, as dark as darkness, except for 2 big, round, pale eyes on his thin face. He had a little bit... This is where I was like, nope, I'm out. The imagery of this thing, I was just like, that's terrifying. He had a little boat and he rowed it about quite quietly on his lake, or on the lake. For lake it was, wide and deep and deadly cold. He paddled it with large feet dangling over the side, but never a ripple did he make. So creepy. Oh my gosh, just this dark cave, this lake, and then this creature has his boat that he's paddling with his feet flopping over the side.
It's
Get
gross.
Me out of
it's
there.
gross. And I feel like, so I was reading this with the sort of the cultural or like the idea of Gollum in your head that you get from the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, and then the way that character seeped its way into pop culture is not this, right? Like this is visceral and creepy and slimy and gross, and kind of at this point when we think of Gollum, you think of just like you know, either him talking to himself over by Frodo, or you think about him singing the song and like about juicy
With
sweet
the fish. I know exactly what moment you're talking about. Yep.
Exactly.
Gollum was pretty consistently wet looking in all of the movies.
Yeah.
He
So
was pretty
slimy.
yucky.
He's pretty yucky, but you're not scared of him.
Yeah, I guess so. He's scary here.
This is
This
really
would have
freaky.
given me nightmares
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
if I had memories of my childhood. What?
And this is where I definitely like am moving more towards like this idea that, oh, this isn't like a happy-go-lucky children's bedtime story. This is more like a Grimm Brothers
Yes.
type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it has a bit of a happier ending than Grimm Brothers fairy tales, where it's like, and then to fit her foot into the shoe, she cut off her toes and heels,
Slice them all off.
and then the birds came and pecked out her eyes. The end, you know?
Yeah.
I think we know this has a happier ending than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I know that, Bilbo returns
makes
home,
it at least.
obviously. Yeah. So this gross thing called Gollum lives in this lake. It notes that he eats a lot of the fish and sometimes the goblins, and at this point he's pretty hungry, and he's seeing this unknown creature walk up, and so he's like, perhaps a meal for me. Let's see.
Goblin has got to taste so bad. Right? Goblin tastes
Yeah.
bad, right?
It's got to be.
I don't think when you're living in the depths of like a cave, I don't think you're like much for taste.
Yeah, right.
I think you're just like anything at this point will do.
It's either
Yeah.
the fish whose fathers swam in and never swam out, or a goblin. Like there's not a whole lot going
The
on.
goblins have food.
I'm trying to think of like what a goblin would taste like.
I think probably really stringy, a little stringy,
Yeah.
Bony?
chewy.
But I'm also imagining it's like eating a fish, but like with the scales still on it. Okay, so now that we're all gagging, great. Exactly what I like to. This is the experience I like to provide my guests with.
Good audio content.
So, Gollum like starts talking to himself, and it mentions that he calls himself. It says, "What is he, my precious?" whispered Gollum, who always spoke to himself, though never having anyone else to speak to. Where is it? At some point, it mentions that he calls himself my precious.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, later on in the chapter, he calls the ring my precious. And I'm like, was there no editing done here? Did Tolkien just change his mind halfway through? And the editor was like, I don't care.
I think maybe
like, whatever.
Both,
It's a book.
Both can be true.
Yeah. He's kind of conflated himself and the ring, and he's talking to both and either.
Yeah, and sort of later we get into in the Lord of the Rings movies, we get into the idea that there's a Gollum and a Smeagol.
Yeah.
And so like there's just like all sorts of things going on with that slimy little dude.
He lived underground too long.
And also, like, I wonder, I do this a lot so far reading The Hobbit, where I'm like, I wonder how far into, like, The Lord of the Rings that Tolkien had thought about so far, or if it was just, like, something that, like, he hadn't even begun to think about yet when he was writing this. Because, like, does he even, like, have this? Because when it says, what did I say earlier about, like, but I don't know who this creature is or what he was or where he came from.
Right.
Like, did Tolkien know yet? Or was that something that he was, like, keeping secret for himself to reveal, like, later on, Or was it, like, he genuinely didn't know? And he's like, I'm sure this creature won't come up again. It'll be fine.
I think he definitely had plans. Because right around here, no, it might be later, actually. He talks about the master of the rings of power. And he's already mentioned the necromancer at this point. So we've seen some of the, like, larger Lord of the Rings
Elements,
stuff happening alongside the story. So I think there was a lot of plans already. Or maybe not.
Yeah,
Who knows? Not me. I only know about Harry Potter fan fiction.
That's an area I haven't even begun to
Lord of the Rings fan fiction.
Think about I don't like, a part of me wants to like do a couple episodes for Lord of the Rings fan fiction. I just think that would be fun, but also I'm afraid.
There's almost certainly some awesome stuff out there. We haven't really delved into it at all. We haven't even really done any crossover stuff.
But also for the awesome stuff, what kind of like horrors do I have to read to find that, you know?
Yeah,
I'm afraid.
It does take some digging.
You just go on AO3, filter out everything you don't want to see, and then you click on the one story that
it's like one story. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Great. Perfect. Yeah, so Gollum the Precious, and he wants it. That's right. He wants to eat Bilbo. Yum. So he goes over to Bilbo and is like, "Who are you? What are you doing here? What are you doing in my swamp?" I don't know why I thought of that. But it's got that mood. Anyway, and Bilbo is like very formal. Also, I would like never in my life give my full name. He says, "I am Mr. Bilbo Baggins." And I'm like, why would you do that in this situation?
Right? He's a polite hobbit.
Too polite.
Too polite.
Too polite for his own good.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, "I have lost the dwarves, and I have lost I also like how he says the wizard and like the dwarves. I don't know. It just makes me laugh. And I don't know where I am, and I don't want to know. If only I can get away." I love that. I don't want to know where I am.
Just get me out of here.
I would like to leave.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Ignorance is bliss and everything.
Yeah, especially when you're in this place. It's completely dark except for two lamp-like giant eyes that are staring at
creepy
you.
eyes.
He can't see Gollum. He can't see what he looks like. He just knows there's a lake in front of him and two really big, scary eyes that rolled up to him. And I love the first thing he says, which is, "Bless us and splash us, my precious." Gross and weird.
Yeah. And also, like, these aren't Dobby the house elf eyes, you know? That's a description that I feel like J.K. Rowling was like, copy paste.
Yeah. One of the many descriptions that J.K. Rowling copy pasted out of this.
That's something that, like, that's like the first thing that is described about Dobby is his eyes. Looking at Harry when he's like sitting in the garden by himself, and it's like, Harry noticed two tennis ball shaped, I don't know, orbs or whatever peeking out from the bush. And that's like essentially what this is, except for Dobby maybe won't kill you on purpose. Gollum will.
Not on purpose.
Dobby's not gonna
eat
not on purpose.
you.
Yeah, he won't eat you.
Yeah, Dobby will not eat your flesh.
He's not quite so wet and slimy.
Ew. So they come to this agreement that Gollum is they're going to tell each other riddles. And if Gollum stumps Bilbo, he gets to eat him. And if Bilbo stumps Gollum, then Gollum has to show him the way out.
Yeah.
It just seems like an unreliable deal. You know?
Yeah.
You're definitely going to get eaten either way here, Bilbo. Like, whatever. He's like, "Oh, yeah, the rules of the riddle game are sacred."
Yeah,
and
that's what I was wondering. It mentions
by
later
all
on.
kinds of dark creatures, and it's like, no, I think you're just going to
Yeah,
get eaten.
yeah, that's what I was wondering, because it mentions later on that, like, the riddle, it calls it, like, the riddle game. So I'm like, so is this, like, a well-known, like
an established
method of, like, compromise or, like, conflict resolution? You know, is this something that's, like, well-known throughout the land amongst all creatures? And it feels kind of like, I don't know, I'm thinking of, like, Pirates of the Caribbean and how, like, they have the pirate code and, like,
The
you know, all this
yucky dark creatures code.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know, it just makes me laugh, this idea that, like, there's this, like, rule book, and apparently everyone in the land of Middle Earth knows that, like, oh, the riddle game is not to be messed with.
Yeah.
It feels really fairy tale, honestly. That feels really fairy tale to me.
Yeah, any like ancient laws feel pretty fairy tale to me. It does feel like a community counselor stepped in and was like, "Okay, we need to resolve this problem in a more productive way," and instituted the riddle game.
Also, I would, like, immediately die, because I don't think I could ever think of, like, a riddle off the top of my head.
Nope. Immediately eaten. Well, I died back in the tunnel when I laid down and gave up, but I also died here.
Yeah, we all died there. If we're being honest, I'm still back in my Hobbit hole. I'm alive, but I just never left.
Yep.
So I'm going to read out the riddles, and listeners, if you are, you can like play at home, pause the podcast after I say the riddle and see if you can solve it yourself. If you are someone who maybe you haven't read The Hobbit before, or you haven't read it in a while, so you don't know what the answers are. Did you guys, I don't know how familiar you are with The Hobbit, if you like already knew the answers ahead of time, but like as I was reading the riddles, I like paused and was like, could I solve this myself?
Yeah. I also did that.
I remembered a few of them from the last time, whenever that was that I read them. I think it was in college.
Yeah. I have no memories. So I tried to do them. I think I got 2 out of all the ones.
I got a couple, and then there are other ones that I was like, that's
nothing.
Sense.
Yeah.
So the first riddle that Gollum tells Bilbo is, what has roots as nobody sees, is taller than trees, up it goes, and yet never grows. And this is a mountain, which I was like,
did you get that one?
Sure.
I do like that golems are all kind of thematic of like where he is and who he is. They're either related to the current present location or really gross and dark. And then Bilbo's are all kind of like outside, sunlight, food focused.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
you
true.
can tell what they spend a lot of time thinking about.
Yeah.
I guess.
And then the next one, let's see. So Bilbo gets it right. And then he asks, 30 white horses on a red hill. First they champ, then they stamp, then they stand still. And the answer to this one is teeth. And I was like, a red hill? Is that supposed to be like our gums?
Your gums probably shouldn't be red,
understand.
correct? It's not good oral hygiene.
But also, like, I'm thinking about the top row of teeth. I wouldn't call, like, I could get the hill, like your teeth standing on a hill for your bottom jaw. That checks out. But, like, your teeth on the upper part are, like, flipped, upside down. So, like, I wouldn't call your gums on the upper part of your mouth a hill.
Right.
Because the teeth are on the bottom. I was thinking too hard about this one.
Yeah, also, like, teeth are in no way similar to horses. What are you talking about? What are riddles? I don't know.
Yeah. It was honestly just kind of gross.
It was.
I didn't like thinking
That
about
was
it.
a gross Bilbo one. Bilbo.
Yeah, so the answer is teeth, and Gollum notes that he only has 6.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Rude. That's rude to people who don't have 30 teeth or whatever he said they were.
The less I think about Gollum's teeth, the better, honestly. Thank you.
There's any shot in the movies where it like was an up close of his mouth, I was like, I'm out.
It's
like
horrible.
I can appreciate like the attention to detail that they gave, and that like it looks really good still in the year 2020
honestly,
and 2021. Still looks good. Hate it.
Hate it.
No, thank you. Fast forward. No, thank you. So then Gollum asks, voiceless it cries, wingless flutters, toothless bites, mouthless mutters. And I was really excited because I got this right.
That one
this
too.
is
Nice.
the wind. I was like, I'm so smart. Look at me solving riddles that are 80 years old, 90 years old at this point.
I expect all riddles to work almost exactly like that riddle. Where it's like using, a word that could mean several different things, or, like I expect it to be sort of like a one-word answer.
Yeah.
Which is, and we'll get into it, which is why the later ones are just bonkers to me.
Oh, hate it. Yeah. So Bilbo gets that right. Then he asks, an eye in a blue face saw an eye in a green face. That eye is like to this eye, said the first eye, but in low place, not in high place. And Gollum struggles on this one because he's just been living in darkness for the rest of his life.
And also that's nonsense.
Yeah, that too. Because apparently the answer is sun. But okay, all right, let's review. So an eye in a blue face. That checks out. That's the sun. But then it says an eye in a green face. What does that mean?
It's a
That's
daisy.
the daisy.
So it's the sun looking at a daisy.
The whole
I totally
answer
missed
is the
that.
sun
I
looking
missed
at
that.
a daisy.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed
Or a
that.
daisy
I
looking at
missed
the sun.
something like that, which is
Well,
like,
the
this
sun
is where it
was-
starts to get crazy, because the answer's not the sun. The answer is the sun looking
like really
down
specific.
upon a daisy that's in a field filled with,
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. This is these are like riddles for children, you know, and I'm like grown woman. I don't know what they are. Okay, yeah, that makes out, because I thought he was just saying, because Gollum says sun on the daisy, it means it does. I just kind of was like, oh, he's talking about flowers in the sun. I don't know. I didn't connect the dots. It's fine. So the next one is, let's see, Gollum asks us. I'm trying to like keep straight who's asking and who's answering. It cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be heard, cannot be smelt. It lies behind stars and under hills, and empty holes it fills. It comes first and follows after, ends life, kills laughter. That's fun, isn't it? What a fun riddle, everyone.
It's a good one.
This is another one that I got correct. It is the darkness. Yep. And that one, I have no issues with that one. That one, you know.
That's a riddle.
That one makes sense. That's a riddle. The answer checks out. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one says, a box without hinges, key, or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid. And this is one that got me really mad, because I sat there thinking for a long time. And then when Gollum like was really struggling at this point, because he, as we previously discussed, he doesn't exactly have a refined taste palette at this point in his life.
It's been who knows how many centuries. How old is Gollum? Really old, right?
I think he is in possession of the ring for something like 600 years, maybe.
So it's been like 500 years since he's seen this stuff.
An egg.
An egg.
Spoiler
An
alert.
egg.
The answer is an egg. Yeah. And I was like, oh, an egg. Okay, that's actually really clever.
That's a good one.
That's clever. I get that. And then Gollum asks, alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsty, ever drinking, all in mail, never clinking. And I got stumped on this one, I'll admit, which I thought was funny. I liked this like line of narration. It says, I imagine you know the answer, of course. And I was like, I don't, but that's okay.
Like, rude narrator,
just, like,
whatever.
called me
You
out.
assume too much.
Like, thank you for thinking I'm smarter than I am. But, or can guess as easy as winking, since you are sitting comfortably at home and have not the danger of being eaten to disturb your thinking.
Right.
I love that little bit of narration. And it also reminds me a lot of a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah,
where the
kinda.
narrator would constantly be like, of course, you're reading this story comfortably in your home,
Yeah.
all curled up in bed, like with a cup of tea, like you're safe and sound. So the problems of these children don't matter to you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, he gets lucky on this one, Bilbo does.
Yeah. And he replies that it is fish.
Yeah.
And it's only because a fish jumps out of the water and like literally lands at his
Bilbo
feet.
is so lucky this whole sequence
Yeah.
and
I
his
do
entire
think-
life.
Gollum is better at riddles than Bilbo.
Yeah.
Decidedly.
Yes.
Which I don't exactly understand how that checks out, because where is Gollum getting these riddles from if he like has been living in this cave for
He's just
the past 600
sitting in
years
the
or
cave coming up with riddles.
so? Is he just coming up with these riddles by himself?
Loves riddles.
You know?
He does ask the One Ring of Power to answer the riddles sometimes, but it can't. So
It goes.
it goes
Yeah, Sauron's not very good at riddles.
Yeah. Canon.
I do like this now, like image in my head of like Gollum telling riddles to the ring, and then meanwhile back in Mordor, Sauron's like,
oh God,
guys, what is it? A box without hinges, key, or lid. And then the orcs are like, I don't know.
Oh, that's really good.
Yes.
Yeah, so the answer to that one is fish. Okay, this next one really gets me. All right. No legs, lay on one leg. 2 legs, sat near on 3 legs. 4 legs, got some.
Bilbo, are you okay?
That's what I'm wondering. It's like, this has to have been, because I think he says it must be something that like is asked a lot, like in the Shire. I don't know.
It's an old Shire riddle.
Yeah, like it's so random. And the answer, listeners, if you're playing along at home and trying to answer the riddle, like props to you if you guessed this without ever having read this book before.
I'm gonna say you didn't do it.
You're that's
lying.
just not possible. Yeah, and you're lying. Yeah. The answer is fish on a little table, man at table sitting on a stool, the cat has the bones.
It's like it's like we're asserting several things. One, a fish is the only animal without legs.
Uh-huh.
It's not.
And then it says lay on one leg. What table has one leg?
Tables with one leg. Next question.
But that's not a table. A table can't
if you have
possibly
like a
stand
table
up.
with the really thick center leg.
Uh-huh.
That's one. I get you can have a table with one leg.
Okay. Yeah, like a cocktail table.
Yeah, not like a dinner table, but like a small round table.
Okay.
Like
this riddle is nothing. Bilbo is in trouble, and I feel so bad for him.
But the fact that,
also,
because this is the one that Bilbo asked Gollum. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But how did Gollum, I don't know how Gollum
because
thought of the
Gollum is
answer.
actually good at riddles.
Mm-hmm.
And Bilbo.
This is an old Shire riddle.
And it's an old. It's got to be an old Shire riddle because also a cat is not the only four-legged creature.
Maybe like he would have accepted the answer if he said dog.
With, like
I don't know.
Snake on a plate on a little table. The dog gets the bones.
I'm tired of these mother snakes on these mother plates. So I listened to a comedy podcast called Hey Riddle Riddle, and they have like a running joke on there as they're answering riddles, where sometimes when a riddle is so bad, they take it to riddle court to like argue that like this riddle makes no sense. It should be like deleted from history, you know?
Yeah.
And that is the riddle I would take to riddle court.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, this is
Makes
terrible.
me so mad. So mad.
I mean, we've got another one that's just like not a riddle coming up, but
that's
continue.
true.
Yeah, okay, yes. Okay, so the next one that I think Bilbo's asking now. No.
Should be Gollum's.
Gollum is asking.
Gollum's got
now.
another nasty one.
This thing all things devours. Birds, beasts, trees, and flowers. Gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds hard stones to meal. Slays king, ruins town, and beats high mountain down. And I was just like, I don't know.
Acid rain.
A dragon?
I got this one.
Acid rain. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of things, actually, you know.
That's true.
Acid rain. You know what? I'll accept that.
If we're in a riddle battle,
We will accept that answer. Mhm.
I accept that answer.
Yeah.
Write it into the ancient riddle laws.
So the answer is not acid rain. What? Though, sadly. The answer is time. That flighty temptress. Time.
And Bilbo gets this one purely by luck.
Yeah. Again, because he says Gollum starts like swimming over to him and he's like, no. Don't eat me. Please give me more time. Oh my God, it's time. Ha. I'm smart. I figured it out. Time.
Nope. Just got real lucky.
So lucky.
Mm-hmm. And the luck continues because Gollum says Bilbo has to ask just one more question to guess. And it's the phrase, that phrasing is so important. And it's so crazy to think that like the events of like the next, I don't know, 200 years of Middle Earth hinge on like that phrasing of this one thing. Because if he had said like, okay, you have to give me another riddle, that would be different. But he says one more question.
Yeah.
And Bilbo says, what have I got in my pocket?
Just musing to himself about, he's like so panicked about not being able to come up with a riddle. He's just like, what's in my pocket? I'm going to think about anything else right now. Brain shuts down. You know when you're panicking and your brain shuts down, you say something stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's in my pocket?
Yeah, and it seems to be also like if we're sort of living in the headspace where the ring has big ring plans, part of its big ring plans are not that Gollum eats Bilbo.
Yeah. But I don't think the ring's affecting this.
I think the ring, he touches the ring in his pocket and then says, "What's in my pocket?" So he was drawn to put his hand in his pocket at that point.
Do you think the ring was just trying to get him to put it on and then just leave?
Probably, yes.
Oh, okay.
Maybe,
that makes more sense.
But Bilbo was just like stupider than the ring expected.
Yes.
And he wasn't like, let me put the ring on. He was like, let me think out loud. What's in my pocket?
Yeah.
So and then Gollum's like, that's not fair. How am I supposed to know what's in your pocket?
Riddle.
It's not a riddle. And he gives him a couple guesses. Also, again, super lucky because Gollum says hands, like literally right as Bilbo took his hands out of his pockets. Like, that's lucky because if his hands had still been in his pockets, Gollum would have won.
Game over.
You know?
Gollum eats you.
And so he guesses, and Gollum is like, oh, fine, I guess I'll show you the way out. Let me go to my little island and get something. Definitely not going to eat you. Also, I do want to say that what happens in this chapter is a totally different, I don't know if I just like remembered wrong from what I read in the Fellowship of the Ring or if I just like misinterpreted it at the time. I thought that Bilbo got the ring by like Gollum had it and then there was some riddle where Bilbo tricked Gollum into giving it to him. And then that's how, or like Bilbo tricked Gollum into giving him the ring and then he was supposed to give it back, but then like some sneakery happened where like he didn't have to give it back. And that's not what happened at all. He just found it in a cave.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then
I don't know
happened to be able to keep it.
What's in the Fellowship?
Oh, I can't remember. No clue. Couldn't tell you.
Oh, well. This whole section is actually one of the few things in the Hobbit movies that's done really well. This section is done, I think, really effectively
well,
in the movie.
I feel like this scene and this sequence of events is like so iconic and important to the lore of Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth and like Tolkien's work. Like everything, like his most famous work of fiction hinges on like the things that happen in this chapter. So I feel like if there's something you're gonna get right, it's got to be this, you know?
Right.
They did so much so wrong in those movies, but this section works pretty well.
I'm excited for all the wrong things.
I have
I'm
a
excited
quick
to see all.
question about Gollum. When they say that when he's trying to figure out what's in Bilbo's pocket, he goes through a list of things that are in his pocket.
In his pocket, yeah.
Oh shoot, yeah, I wrote that down.
list of
Does
things that
Gollum
are
even have pockets?
Okay, he's wearing
Gollum
clothes.
has
He has pockets. There's some weird
Shire.
in
The
his
stuff in his pockets is wild. He's got 6 teeth and he has a stone that he uses to sharpen those 6 teeth in his pocket. Excuse me?
Yeah, let's see. Okay, let me go back and read this because it says he thought of all the things he kept in his own pockets: fish bones, goblin's teeth, wet shells, a bit of bat wing,
Why?
a sharp stone to sharpen his fangs on, and other nasty things.
Yeah. What are you doing? Why are your pockets full of
Actually,
that?
you know what? This reminds me, I don't know if either of you guys have played Stardew Valley before, but this reminds me a lot of like when you go into the mines in Stardew Valley.
Your pockets are full of garbage.
And you have like, you literally like, you have like bug meat and like monster slime and you have like 99 stones.
You think Gollum's just waiting
bat
to
wings.
trade these for some better things? He's got pockets full of bat wings to craft some what the f- do you craft with bat wings? I don't
even know.
now.
I think it's like bombs or something.
good.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Fine. Excuse me, Gollum. Keep your
Shire.
in your pockets. It's useful.
Yeah, he's just hoarding everything to like maybe craft something later. I don't know. But yeah, like what pockets?
What is
also,
he
these
wearing?
Are large,
He's wearing
These are
pants.
large pockets.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in them.
Just the idea of like
wearing
Gollum
cargo
and
pants.
a pair of like Oh, you know what though?
A lot of pockets.
You know what? Cargo pants checks out with Gollum. That checks
Stupid
out.
pants thoughts today. Apparently, I'm
Like
sorry.
that. Those ideas like vibe completely with me. Like Gollum wearing cargo pants makes sense to me. Now, question, are they the kind of cargo pants where like you unzip them at the knee and they become shorts?
Yes. And he's definitely like lost one of them.
Oh, that's funny. That's good. Yeah.
One long pant, one short pant. Lots of bat wings
Poor
in his
Gollum.
pockets.
He's had a rough go of it.
Lots
Rough
of
go of
wet
it.
shells.
Anyway, yeah, okay. So Gollum is like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my little island and get my
Definitely
ring.
not get something to kill you with.
No.
Definitely not.
He's like, oh, I need something to help us like get out of here. And Bilbo's just like, okay, that makes sense.
Fine.
So Gollum,
I'll wait here for
Gollum's
you.
plan is to get the ring and put it on, and then sneak up behind Bilbo and kill him and eat him.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is, oh, actually, I do want to mention, it says, my birthday present, he whispered to himself. He says, yeah, my birthday present, it came to me on my birthday, my precious. But who knows how Gollum came by that present? And it's just like, okay, well, two things.
You do
He
know.
says like, oh, it came to me on my birthday. Like he didn't commit murder.
Right. Yeah.
Like he didn't murder,
Yeah.
he didn't murder his best friend. And then also just like once again of like, but who knows how Gollum came by that present? And then like a couple years later, Tolkien's like, I know how Gollum came by that present, and I'm going to write about it in a chapter that's 30 pages long with exposition.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he finds, to his horror though, the ring is not there. And he comes back and he's like, where is it? I've lost it. And Bilbo's like, what are you talking about? And then Gollum's like, what's in your pocket? What's in your pocket, huh? And Bilbo's like, what have you lost? So they just go back and forth like this for a while. And then eventually Bilbo's like, maybe I should put this ring on.
Maybe
I don't know why. Maybe I should just put it on.
Yeah.
Just have
just
a
a
gut
little bit.
instinct feeling.
Yeah, he's finally giving in to the ring, being like, just put me on. We could have bypassed this entire experience.
I'm here to help or whatever.
So he's like run away from Gollum at this point, because Gollum is pissed because he doesn't have the ring. He's mad because Bilbo tricked him with the riddle thing, and he's also hungry. And Bilbo, he puts the ring on, and Gollum runs by him, and Bilbo's like, oh, I guess this turned you invisible. That's so lucky. And it's like, yeah, it is really lucky,
It's
Bilbo.
so interesting. I wonder if you read this without the context of all of like the Lord of the Rings, if you would think the ring is so important and so evil. Because it's just like a ring here.
That's what I was wondering a lot too, is like, because whenever someone is holding the ring in Fellowship or in Lord of the Rings, it's always described as like having this like weight to it, and there's like darkness and evil surrounding it, and like you put it on and you go into like, I called it the upside down.
Yeah.
But like you go into like this half ghost
Shadow world,
you know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, that doesn't happen here. He just turns invisible, and it also doesn't really have much of a like negative effect on Bilbo, at least like mentally. Like I think at one point it talks about him he's thinking about what it's like to be Gollum and like living in this darkness all his life and knowing nothing and only eating goblins and like that just feeling so hopeless. But like that's kind of the darkest his thoughts go. So I did wonder like how much of this had Tolkien thought. Like did Tolkien at this point think that, oh, this ring just turned someone invisible and that's it? Or did he know at this point that it was going to have more to it? Because I don't know. I have no clue what to think.
I think the ring, it does mention in here that the ring has been tormenting Gollum somewhat. Like he used to keep it on him at all times, and now he can't stand to keep it around him that often, because I think the ring is tormenting him somewhat. And then we do get the hint here also about the master who ruled them. The rings of power. So I think there is some larger context stuff here, but it is interesting how not spooky the ring is as far as Bilbo goes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was talking about earlier with this chapter is I really don't believe that Gollum would have noticed, because it explains that he had gone and killed a goblin, and in the process of like carrying the goblin back or whatever, the ring slipped off and he didn't notice. And so that's how the ring came to be in the tunnel where Bilbo found it. But like I just don't believe for a second that like if you're so obsessed with this ring that you wouldn't notice it slipping off your finger, you know?
Mhm.
And like, I know that like for the sake of the plot, like that's what had to
Right.
have happened. But like, it just doesn't check. And like the things that like we see Gollum do in Lord of the Rings out of like desperation of trying to
Right.
get the ring back doesn't check out to
I
me.
think even more so a little bit later this chapter, but yes, for sure. I think
Yeah.
the ring was definitely affecting him in some ways in this area, keeping him
Yeah.
from thinking about it. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Perhaps, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he obviously, like, since the ring torments him and he can't wear it on him anymore, he can't wear it all the time anymore, there is something that he feels when he's wearing it. So if it were to slip off, that feeling would likely go away, and I think that that's probably the one of the more like unbelievable plot points.
He was just really focused on the goblin snack he was about to have.
I get it. You know, when you're so blinded by hunger, you're like,
So hungry.
I don't know. Like
So
when you're
hungry.
driving to like go get fast food, you're like, I don't know if I ran over 3 people on the way here. I just want food.
Oh, dear.
Like, did I run a
Oh,
did I run a
no.
red light? I don't know.
Oh, no. I don't know.
All I know is I'm about to get a milkshake and some fries, and that's all that matters to me. You know, you just kind of like black out. I've like 5,000% done that, where I'm so hungry I sit down to eat a meal, and then like I just like black out, and all of a sudden there's like 4 bites left, and I'm like, how did this
Where did my
happen?
food go? Who ate it?
I don't remember eating this at all. Anyway, yeah. So Gollum he's like, oh, well, Bilbo is maybe ahead of me, so I'll go chase him and see if I can find him. And Bilbo's like, oh, this is so clever of me, because now he's going to lead me to the exit. So he follows Gollum, and then Gollum gets to the part of the tunnels where like it meets back up where the goblins are, and there's like this tiny opening, and Gollum is like, okay, well, Bilbo's not here, and he's not where the goblins are, or he wouldn't have survived, so I'm just going to sit here. And then Bilbo's like, oh, no, what do I do?
Yeah.
So then he just like jumps over him,
Well,
and
he has a really sustained argument with himself about killing Gollum at this point, which I think is interesting, especially in the context of like how much Frodo struggles with
right,
that.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's where he goes into these thoughts about like what it's like to be Gollum and to live here. Yeah, and Bilbo eventually does come to this conclusion that like, oh, it's not really fair, which is like, but I absolutely hated about like Frodo's character in Lord of the Rings too. It's just being like, no, he 5,000% deserves it. Just kill him, you know?
He's so terrible. And Bilbo at one point, he's like, he hasn't really threatened to kill me, but Gollum definitely did
He was
threaten
gonna
to kill
eat
you.
me.
He said he was going to eat you. So, like, I don't know where this compassion is coming from,
I think
but you're a much better person than me.
Cause enough for a murder, you know?
Yeah.
I think that checks out.
Say you're gonna
Ugh.
eat me, I will kill you. Yeah, I have in my notes like it's very compassionate of Bilbo, and you see like how a hobbit like Bilbo would have been able to sustain so many years holding on to something as evil as the ring and continue to be and not be entirely consumed by it is because he is so incredibly compassionate to the point where he can look at Gollum and be like, your circumstances are horrifying and I feel bad for you, but yes, you did just threaten to eat me, and I would have just stabbed Gollum.
Yeah.
And like even still Bilbo like still has pity for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good dude.
Also, of course, like that being said, it's a children's book. It would have taken a dark turn if all of a sudden like your main character is like, nah, I'm gonna murder him.
Just stab him a little bit.
Just kill him.
Doesn't need to die on screen.
Yeah, just like, oh, stab.
Just
oh
a
no,
little
maybe he
stabbing.
bled out, maybe he didn't. I don't know. Up to you. So Bilbo leaps through this like gap in the opening and runs away. It says Gollum was defeated. He dared go no further. He had lost his prey and lost to the only thing he ever cared for, his precious.
Yeah, this is where it became unbelievable for me when he stops here. and just lets Bilbo
that
go.
he wouldn't follow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's because he knows that without the ring, because in the room behind them that Bilbo goes into is where all the goblins are, and I think Gollum knows that if he goes to where the goblins are and he doesn't have the ring, he'll be killed.
Probably,
and eaten.
yeah, I guess so. But he does such like wild stuff in Lord of the Rings to follow the ring all over the place.
True.
He just lets it go here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he screams, "Thief, thief, thief, Baggins. We hate it. We hates it. We hates it. We hates it forever." And I'm like, I'm sure that won't come up again.
This seems like something that we'll never revisit.
Nah, I'm sure it won't come up again. Yeah. It's fine.
Especially in this world with like long timelines and descendants
won't come
of
up again.
People thinking about
Don't
things
need to worry about it.
No, okay. All right.
That's good. That's good. So then Bilbo, for some reason, like the ring like came off of him.
I think it's trying to get to the goblins here, right?
The ring?
Oh, the ring?
I think the goblins would probably make it easier for it to get back to Sauron at this point.
Oh.
It's trying to abandon Bilbo. It's like, I'm done with you now. You got me away from Gollum. So
you know what? I think that kind of checks out. Yeah.
The ring does all kinds of convenient stuff for itself all the time, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Suddenly it's not on my finger anymore, and pretty sure
and so
was.
Bilbo realizes that he is fully visible as he's jumped into this room full of goblins. And I liken this to I'm thinking specifically of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but like it's an experience with a lot of other video games where like you're being stealthy, you're sneaking around all these enemies, and then like maybe you hit a wrong button or like you accidentally like make a loud noise and you're like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. And then all the monsters turn and look at you and you're like, well, I guess we're not going with stealth anymore.
I guess we're fighting now. Except Bilbo doesn't fight.
Yeah, he just runs.
Not a fighter.
Yeah, but all the goblins turn and they're like, huh? Look at him. They all just turn into Tim Allen for some reason. Then he puts the ring back on and turns invisible, and they're all like, where'd he go? And so he goes to slip through this like crack in the door, barely makes it out. His like buttons pop off of his jacket. And he runs out and makes it into like the exit of the cave and gets out of there alive, which is frankly like that's
impressive.
You know,
super impressive.
We all three agreed that we would have died in the tunnel
immediately in the beginning.
Yep.
So yeah, that is the end of the chapter. Of course, I know that we will see more of Gollum in Lord of the Rings. I'm interested to see if we'll see more of Gollum in The Hobbit. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering. I feel like for the sake of, I don't know, the plot, maybe we won't see Gollum, because then it would just turn into more of like Gollum trying to get the ring back. And then how do you stop him from getting the ring if he follows you? And the only way to stop him is to kill him. But we obviously didn't do that anymore. So I don't know. I'll just be interested to see what happens with Gollum at this point.
Yeah.
Well, that will bring us to the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find both of us on Fanatical Fics, a Harry Potter fan fiction podcast wherever pods are cast, and also on social media as Fanatical Fics. But you can also find Sequoia.
You can find me on my other podcast, But Make It Scary, a show where we take romantic movies and turn them into horror films.
Oh, I love that.
That podcast can be found anywhere pods are cast and on social media at But Make It Scary.
That's what I'm talking about is a proud member of WBNE. You can learn more about the network by going to WBNE.org, where you will find all of our shows like our Dungeons and Dragons podcast, Late to the Party.
This is an urgent message. If you or a loved one have been suffering from mild hallucinations,
encountering what looked like a horde of zombies,
lack of fine motor function,
there was no parking, and I pulled up on the lawn and broke a sprinkler head,
the inability to sit for long periods of time.
Did you just break the chair?
Jordan is holding a chair arm up. Roll to sit. Oh, did not do so good.
Trouble using your tools.
Are you gonna take another smashy smash?
I sure am. 13 probably doesn't hit.
Does not hit.
Sorry about the dice, Scott.
Or existential crises.
And I'm playing Sunny Days, a high elf cleric, a half elf cleric, a quarter elf cleric, a mostly human cleric, a mostly human but with a smidgen of elf cleric.
You may be entitled to podcasts. Ask your doctor about Late to the Party, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play podcast for the whole family. Available every other Monday on WBNE.org or wherever podcasts are sold.
The cover art is by Graphite, aka Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at graphite.vmb. You can get merch for That's What I'm Talking About by going to tpublic.com/user/talkingaboutpod or following the link in the episode description. You can find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at talkingaboutpod, and you can also join the Facebook group, which is again linked in the description. You can find me on Twitter at MCWhatsup or Instagram at MCTurndownForWhat. You can support the podcast by going to patreon.com/talkingaboutpod. You can join the WBNE Discord server for $3 a month, or you can become a sponsor of the podcast like Taylor. And Taylor's a wonderful sponsor. We had a hangout with some of the other Talking About patrons in the Discord a couple weeks ago. Was it a couple weeks ago? I don't know. Time is irrelevant. And Taylor is amazing, and I love her, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much for having us on. This was a blast. I am
Yes.
going to definitely take this opportunity to just keep reading The Hobbit.
through the rest of it,
I
yeah.
think.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think
Nice,
it's
nice.
time.
I will also keep reading. It'll just take me a lot longer to get through it, but eventually I'll get there, and we'll see. Oh, actually, I do need to bring up and mention, listeners, I have unfortunately at this point in my Hobbit journey learned some kind of a spoiler. I'm not sure to what extent. I was on TikTok. I scrolled away but I did still catch like the first glimpse. Someone was showing a clip from the Hobbit movie, and I did see Bilbo like standing or sitting next to a dead body of some kind and looking sad. No clue who the dead body was.
Okay, all
But at
right.
this point, I know that someone does die, and it looks like it's going to be sad, and that does make me sad to know that like someone in here dies. And I'm like,
The
I didn't
movies
want that.
diverged more and more wildly from the book as they went along.
They just made up new characters. Like
There
a
are
laundry
characters in the
list.
movie that aren't in the book, and the final
that is
battle.
something I was wondering. Is like maybe this is something that was just a movie thing. I don't know, but I am. We'll see. I don't know. But at this point, I felt the need to update the listeners because I have with Lord of the Rings, when I was reading it, I did learn a couple like spoilers along the way that were like
can't
pretty
believe, like,
pivotal.
Lord of the Rings is so in the cultural zeitgeist, it's hard not to know
Yeah.
everything about it.
I was like on heightened like senses for like a good for like a solid year and a half of like anytime there was remotely like a mention of like Tolkien or Frodo, I was like, nope, mute, not listening, not doing it, not risking it, not going there. Yeah. So well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Do you have any parting words for the audience?
No. Rock on, my dudes.
And that's what I'm talking about.